we grinded it, man. And so we grinded for about almost 4 years. We grew that business to seven figures. And then we literally, like, the last 6 months of the business, we got five offers for the company. The first one we were like, nah. Second one we were like, nah. And then we were kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, maybe we can actually use these people to get what we really want out of this. And then the numbers just kept going higher and higher and higher. And we got an offer from the second largest waste company in the world. And we ended up making a deal with them, and we merged with their company.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Movers. This show is about movers and shakers and real-world producers that have had to pave their own path against all odds. These are their stories.
Today we have a very special guest. We have Jamison Gavin. I'll let him tell his full story so you could understand just how accomplished this man is. But he's shown entrepreneurial traits from when he was very little, from a service business in his teens to later making a Craigslist type marketplace at UCF called Nitrate, to then moving into the multifamily industry as an industry leader and pioneer, right? One of the first to do it in valet trash. Later on, a few years later, he exited that business, and today he is a multifamily investor, a business investor. I'll let you tell all the things that you're dipping into. I know you're doing a lot of stuff, but and Jamison has now, I just found out, the ultimate goal of ending homelessness. So I definitely want to hear more about that. So Jamison, without further ado, first of all, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Why don't you start from the beginning? Tell us about your early childhood. Where were you born, raised, and what were those, first things that you saw growing up that you'd said, okay, like, I am a businessman. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. So definitely thank you for having me on the show. And so basically, man, grew up in Decatur, Georgia. Not a very super luxurious area for those individuals who know Decatur, aka Zone 6 of Atlanta. And just from a young age, I realized that my family didn't have all of the things that I felt were necessary for us to thrive and to have the things that we really wanted. And I noticed other individuals had those things. And so I said, man, if other people can get it, there's got to be a way for me to get it too. And so unfortunately, I thought it was going to be through sports. It was not. I went down a very interesting path, which led me to college or to UCF. And I was able to play soccer there. But at a young age, I realized that entrepreneurship was a way to make a very good living. And so my very first business, believe it or not, I was selling, I don't know if you know hot Cheetos. Do you know the hot Cheetos?
Yeah, of course.
So I actually sold some hot Cheetos. I would literally open up my jacket in school and like, hey man, you want some hot Cheetos or whatever? I was a hot Cheeto guy at Chapel Hill Middle School in Decatur, Georgia. So that's when I started. And then literally landscaping was my very first business. So I went from cutting my own yard, my parents' yard, as a quote unquote allowance that I had to do, to cutting the neighbor's yard. And then before I knew it, I was cutting everybody's yard of the neighborhood.
Let me interrupt there, because that's so funny, because I can draw a direct parallel to that, because that's exactly what I did when I was little. I didn't do the full grass cutting and everything. I would pick weeds, and then eventually that evolved into remulching it, and later on I hired some neighbors and all that. And I know you have a really similar story. I'm curious, what do you think drove you to do that? Was it your parents pushing you? Because I know my parents did a very good job of like kind of encouraging me to do the right things, but I want to dip into later on, like, if entrepreneurs are born or made, and this is one of those things that, do you think that you had some kind of calling to do this? Or like, why were you doing this while all your friends were just, messing around, doing whatever?
Yeah, that is a great question. I just think, honestly, I think by not having, I think it made me want to have, and seeing that those around me didn't have. And I always knew that I wanted more. And then I do think that there's a bit of that is more of the nurture side of it, or because you're probably talking about nature versus nurture for all of our college graduates, nature versus nurture. And I think, my parents actually having that background of entrepreneurship, both of them being in an entrepreneurship space, and quite frankly, having ups, having downs, and me seeing both sides of it and realizing, man, like the ups are great, the downs are pretty down. But realizing, if I can have more ups than downs, then, life would be better than it is now.
Yeah. So you think in a way like your parents like kind of gave you that
Absolutely.
roadmap and you took it and ran?
Absolutely. I think I learned the things that they did very well, stuck with them. I think I learned from their failures and said, I'm not going to do these failures. And it allowed me to have more success. So for sure.
Okay. All right, so then you were selling hot Cheetos in school.
Yep.
Then you moved into the service business, and is that where you first hired people and got your first dipped your first experience into like what a business would look like in the future for you?
It definitely is. And what's crazy is the other day, and you know my mom, and so she actually sent me a photo. She sent it to myself and my wife Courtney. And it was actually the invoices, my very first invoices of like age 12 or 13. And she's like, if anyone ever doesn't believe you, send them these invoices. And it's like just so super standard, like $40 like a front yard, $50 for the front and back. $40
was money.
Man, especially at 13, dude, I thought I was just balling out of my socks. So, but it's just wild, yeah. It's really wild.
Okay. And so what came next after the service business? What was your next thing?
So I was honestly, man, I was really heavy into soccer. I believed that I was going to be this huge, big time professional soccer player. I thought I was going to be the Mbappe, and if Mbappe is watching, you're my favorite player right now. So I thought I was going to be the Mbappe of my time frame, and unfortunately, I just didn't have those skills. So I pushed as hard as I could in soccer. Was able to have a very short professional career. Was able to play in some other countries as well as at UCF, but that just didn't turn out how I had imagined that it would. And I mean, really just, it hit me hard, dude. Like it hit me really hard.
How much how much do you think you learned being a competitive athlete with carrying on to business? Like how similar would you say those two things are? Because I almost think that athletes have a huge edge in being entrepreneurs.
Yep, I would agree with that. Right? I think there's pros and cons, of course. The pros definitely working with people, understanding the different dynamics, learning that you really want to win. And that's the same as business. Nobody wants to lose. So I totally agree. I think it had a very huge impact on my business career.
Just the competitiveness and pushing your body physically, it kind of trains you to push your mind. It does. Because a lot of times in business, like a lot of people know what they have to do. Is just getting themselves to do it. I know that's a problem that I have.
Yeah, it's hard.
And being an athlete kind of trains you for that. So something I've picked up is running lately, where you just say, okay, I'm gonna run X amount of miles. Yeah. And no matter how you feel, you just kind of force yourself to do it. So sports are definitely, I could see how you carried all those things that you learned in those years into business.
Yep. It's so true.
Okay. And so after soccer, how did you get into this industry, this business in the first place? How did it start? What came before it?
So let me see. Well, it really stemmed off of that. And honestly, I'm a strong believer in like when great failure happens or like huge success happens right after the biggest failure you ever thought you had. And honestly, this was like the lowest point in my life. And I was basically kicked off of this team at the University of Central Florida. I had like a 2.2 GPA or whatever my first semester there. And the coach pulls me in a room and he's like, dude, like, it's not that you're not a good player, but our players have to have better GPAs. And so I'm like, dude, like other people on the team don't have as good GPAs as I do, but you're kicking me off the team. He's like, yeah, it's not going to work out here. And so I cried my eyes out. I was away from home and I just felt like I was a failure. Everything I put my life into, 3-4 soccer teams every day, training ODP, Olympic team. I mean, just everything. I thought I was a failure. And so I still graduated, but before I graduated, I signed a professional contract, started playing soccer. And then when I was overseas in Armenia, we won the championship and there was confetti going everywhere and things like that. And I realized, there's more to life than just soccer. I knew I wanted to marry Courtney at the time, was able to do that. Thank God she still loved me. And so, and then I had that idea, why not trash? And who cleaned up the stadiums after these type of events? And then that's when our business was born.
I'm curious though, how did you land on trash? Because I know for me, with moving, what I do is, for me it was like, okay, I have no money, literally. What can I do with my own two hands that's like very like relatively easy to learn, all that. Did you have that kind of thought going in, or or did you see a bigger opportunity from the beginning? Because I don't think I saw the bigger opportunity at the beginning. I was just like, hey, like how do I make some money? Yeah.
That's funny. And for me, honestly, I just did research. So it could have been moving, it could have been something else. I did start the company Nitrate back at UCF. So actually, I thought it was going to be more of something online or technology. But in the moment of literally pulling my hair out, I remember driving into work one day, and I was working for Thomson Reuters out in Orlando, and I have nothing but good things to say about the company. Everyone was great there. All of my bosses, everyone. And I just remember pulling into a parking space one day, and literally, and I have long hair, and I had long hair then, and I was just like pulling my hair out, just pulling it as hard as and I was screaming in the car, and people are passing the car, like, looking at me like, this guy is crazy or whatever. But I just was going crazy, and I realized like this was a road that wasn't gonna get me to where I wanted to be in life. And so I just did research on what is a good business that's been good in the goods, in the good economy and the bad economy, the recessions, etc. And waste just happened to be one of those industries. And so I'm like, all right, God, you got me. He's like, I got you. And I said, let's go in, let's do it.
That's awesome. And then rewinding back a little bit, you mentioned Nitrate.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that and how you decided to get into that.
Yep. So, dude, I swore Nitrate was gonna be the eBay of college, and I thought I was gonna be a multi-billionaire from Nitrate.
Yeah.
So
you watched The Social Network?
Oh yeah, I did. I thought that was it. Literally, I thought this was like the ultimate business ever.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be okay. We had a lot of users, but it was not what I thought it was going to be. But literally, so this happened actually on the heels of leaving the UCF men's soccer team. And so I needed something to do to put my mind on. And I was thinking, man, like these textbooks are just so expensive in college. Like you pay, at the time, it felt like I was paying $300 for a textbook. And then you go back the next semester and they'd say, hey, I'll give you $50 for it. Like, what? How does one semester, how does 3-4 months, like how does the value of my textbook drop that much? And then you go back, and I would always write in my textbooks just a little bit, and I would go back and see my same textbook there, and they're selling it again for like $250. I'm like, wait a second. So that's
seems like a little bit of a scam.
Yeah, just a little bit. I still love the University of Central Florida, but seems like a little bit of, hey, let me see what's going on here.
What do you think you learned from that business? I don't know how it ended up going for you, but I think it's really important that, to get your hands dirty with trying new things and trying and failing and trying and failing. Like, what do you think you learned from that Nitrate business that you carried into premium trash?
Great question. So number one is to scale quickly. So in that business with Nitrate, and it's wild too, man, looking back on it, I feel like I was crazy. But at the time, you just do what you have to do. And so with Nitrate, I felt like I needed income. I needed a new way. I was no longer going to be able to play soccer. So I needed to find a way to make money to actually still stay in school. And so I just passed out flyers every day by the student union. And I created like a little flyer that had like the Xbox on one side, it was green, and then the PlayStation on the other side. And it was like, hey, use nitrate.com. We're going to give away an Xbox or a PlayStation at the end of every month. And that's what we did, and so literally students would look at it and they're like, no way. And so they would just sign up for Nitrate and they would see, dude, like somebody's trading Psychology 101 for Algebra 101 or whatever. And the business grew. I think we had maybe 10,000 users within a few months.
Wow.
And then we ended up actually selling that business to a UCF student like 6 months later. It was,
wow, so it was a success for you.
It was, but it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. I didn't make that much money from it.
Right.
And if I was, and I just didn't have the wisdom that I have now, I would have done something different.
What do you think, like specifically, what mistakes did you make that you would go back and do differently?
So number one, I would have pushed even harder. I would have brought in the right people to help me succeed. I didn't have the wisdom in that space to understand what it could become, because it could have become something a lot bigger, not just for the University of Central Florida, but perhaps for other colleges and universities. At the time, my mindset was just on UCF. It was just, let me make some money, pay for school, and I would be great. I would be so happy, and that's what I was able to do. But if I was wiser as I am now, I would have built a team. I would have asked for help. I would have been okay giving equity or whatever in order to see the end, instead of just basically cutting the business short and cashing out.
Okay. I got a couple things to ask you about that, but let's let you finish your story.
Yeah. No, you're good. It's good.
So from that, okay, you start Premium Trash, and tell us a little bit of that story.
Yeah, man.
I know it's a few years in the works.
Dude,
and
yes.
That's your baby. That's really what
that is
your big accomplishment up until
up until now. And we have some other things working on, but Premium Trash is definitely the business that has made us the most money to date. It won't be in the future, but today it definitely is. And so for the folks who are watching this or listening, Premium Trash was a Valley Trash company. And we started off with the event cleanup. We were actually the fastest growing event cleanup company in the city of Orlando, as well as in South Florida. And then we moved very quickly into Valley Trash, and mainly because we didn't have the money to get into Valley Trash. We started out with a $5,000 credit card from Wells Fargo, literally. I just didn't have any money, and my wife didn't either, and we weren't married at the time. She was still in college, pre-med. So it was literally, hey, I applied for a credit card. 5,000 was all I was available to me. We grinded it, man. And so we grinded for about 3, almost 4 years. We grew that business to 7 figures. And then we literally, like, the last 6 months of the business, we got 5 offers for the company. The first one we were like, nah. Second one we were like, nah. And then we were kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, maybe we can actually use these people to get what we really want out of this. And then the numbers just kept going higher and higher and higher. And we got an offer from the second largest waste company in the world. And we ended up making a deal with them, and we merged with their company.
What do you think made your business so appealing to that company?
Great question. I get that question a lot, especially from entrepreneurs. So it's definitely going to be good for your listeners. Number one, we built Premium Trash from the ground up, from day one, to be built to sell, or to be sold. And so when I try to mentor other individuals, and especially entrepreneurs, I try to let them know and tell them, you need to build it to be able to be sold. From day one, if it's not going to be wrapped up with a nice pretty bow on it, and you can present it and say, here, Mr. Investor, here, Mr. VC firm or angel or whoever you are, would you like this nice business that's producing this amount of profit year over year and that's growing straight like this? If it's not going to be like this and they can see how they're going to make their returns, it's going to be tough.
But how could you know that if you had never, you had your experience selling your business, but like this is a whole other scale we're talking about. Like how, did you just do a lot of research to how companies get told and then just kind of reverse engineer? Like what was your way of knowing that you're building something to scale and sell?
So 2 things. One is when you look at a business from day one, you want to see what can this business become. And so if it's an industry that doesn't have, that's not a big industry, and it's not something where you can reach 7 figures realistically in a year, or you can reach $10 million in 4 or 5 years. And as an example, certain businesses like landscaping are going to be probably easier to scale than probably selling t-shirts, right, in the beginning. But there's going to be certain things where selling t-shirts online is going to have a better ability for scale because you're just one person. Whereas as landscaping, you're going to need more people to scale it. So if you're looking at the 2 different business models, landscaping is going to take way more time and effort than selling t-shirts. Yeah. However, everybody wants to sell t-shirts online, and how many people are really willing to put in the work and the effort to do landscaping? Down here in South Florida, unfortunately, landscaping is like everywhere. So for me, if I knew I wanted to make $1 million profit year over year, me personally, I wouldn't get into landscaping right now just because your competition is so high. So there's competition, there's the availability to scale, there's so many different things. And I saw with my parents and their successes and failures, and a lot of failures, there's certain things where certain businesses I don't want to be a part of just because they're not going to be able to be sold and scaled properly.
Okay. So let me pick it into your mindset for a second here. Yeah. What do you think are, because there's a lot of things that, you say naturally, like, we push through it and this. What do you think are some traits that allow you to push through what it really takes? Because, when you tell the story in a few seconds, it sounds like, oh, that's easy. I'll just build it to sell and then I'll start now. But, there's a lot of ups and downs there. Like, what do you think are some things that are in your mindset that have kept you going and allowed you to keep pushing?
And I definitely want to make it clear. I'm glad you mentioned that because Courtney and I have a lot of people around us, like even our second layer of circle, who swear that it's like so easy of what we do. And I tell her all the time, like, babe, like, we make it look easy. And the truth is, and what I learned from one of my mentors, whom you also know, is that the individuals who are the best at what they do, they make it look easy. So for example, rest in peace to the to the Mamba, Kobe, is that he made it look easy, right? And so we see him as a legend. We see him as he's so amazing because it seems like he can't miss, right? Same with other individuals at what they do. Gary Vee, as you have his shoes up there, right? I mean, it looks like he can't miss, because he's so good at what he does. And so the thing is, I'm sure it's not easy what Gary Vee is doing. I'm sure it's extremely difficult. Actually, I know it is, even though I've never talked to him. However, it's not going to be easy. So that's number one. And even whenever I hire somebody in any position that works for me, the first thing I tell them is it's not going to be easy. And I think if you come in with the mindset to entrepreneurship, hey, I'm not getting into this because I think my life is going to be glamorous. I'm going to be living like Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, selling whatever she's selling online and things like that. Like, it's not going to be easy. That's number one. Number two, I think, is integrity. So integrity has brought me a long way. Unfortunately, in the beginning, it was something that I felt that other individuals were succeeding with, even though they didn't have integrity. And so I challenged myself, like, man, like, maybe I'm being too much of a man of integrity. Maybe I need to play a little dirtier to like undercut some folks because they're not playing with integrity and they're taking my accounts. You know what I mean? And so I remember I attacked an individual in our industry and I said, you're not a man of integrity. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. And I should not have even said that. I should have just played my game and just continued to be a man of integrity. So those are the two things I think are most important.
Integrity, and then just like, understanding that it's going to be challenging.
It's going to be tough. You know what I mean? It's like running a marathon.
Man, you know what? Because you also even make that answer sound easy. So
it's not easy. Trust me.
It brings me to this next question is, this is like an ongoing debate. Do you think entrepreneurs are born or made a product? Obviously you're a product of your environment and how you're raised and everything, but do you think that there are some things, and I want to try to pinpoint those, that's why I keep digging. What do you think they're born and made, first of all? And if so, why?
I think entrepreneurs are made, for sure. Okay. I think that we are all naturally entrepreneurs. And so I say that as in, I think we all are salesmen or saleswomen, because every day we wake up, we have to sell. Whether or not you're going into a job and you're flipping burgers, I mean, you're selling yourself even there, selling your ability to keep that job, or you're selling multi-million-dollar houses. I mean, you're selling then to clients and trying to keep your client list high and selling those communities or those properties. So whoever we are, I think there's a side of us that are entrepreneurs. But I think that that's the basis of whom we are. And I think what makes us whom we become is actually more of the nurture and who we listen to, the books that we read, the individuals who we learn from, our mentors, all of that, having that ongoing mindset of, hey, it's not going to be easy, but it's a marathon and not a sprint. And let's knock this puppy out every day, even though it's gonna suck. Like, it just is. It is.
Something I think a lot of entrepreneurs that I know have in common is they welcome risk.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that, because I'm somewhere, in between those two answers, that they're born and made. I think that you have to have certain things that just come natural, because how do you teach to be risk averse, to not be risk averse?
Very tough.
So would you agree that that's one of those things, is willing to embrace risk? And how would you teach somebody that if.
So it's weird, man. I forgot who, because I read so many books every year, but I forgot who said this. It may have been Kevin O'Leary. It may have even been Mark Cuban, but there was someone who said it, and I apologize for not remembering who said this, but they said they believe that being an entrepreneur is actually less risky than being an employee. And so when I started thinking about why they would say something like that, I actually have begun to kind of believe that too. And I believe that more now and I say this, I believe that now, after I've made 7 figures and I'm in a certain bracket, I believe this. Before, I didn't believe that. And so what I mean by that is, now I feel like, hey, if my business crashes, if everything I have, it goes away, my car, my everything I have goes away, I feel like I'll be all right, honestly. Whereas before, even the little bit that I had, when I had barely no money in my pocket and I was just in college at UCF, I mean, my whole world was crashed just because of one coach said, basically, you're not good enough. Now, people tell me I'm not good enough all the time. And it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like, I know what my bank account looks like. I know what we're doing. So I don't know, maybe the challenge is to teach people that it's less risky to be an entrepreneur and take control of your life than it is to actually have a job and to not take risks.
That's true. And that is a challenge to have people jump that hurdle in their minds. Because I feel like, there's a reason why people hold back, and there's, people want to do stuff, but it's like they feel like they can't do it, or, whatever the reason is, where they don't allow themselves to take the risk.
True. It's so true.
So speaking of challenges, though, I guess to give to help the listeners at home, what would you say are the two biggest challenges that you had to push through? Like we've taken in business, you take big blows that are all borderline could take you out of business. What would you say are two challenges that you faced with Premium Trash that taught you the most? Mistakes that you won't make again.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills over here. I can remember the days to a T. Like I don't remember the exact date, but I can remember where I was, what I was doing. All of that. So in Premium Trash, I want to say probably around year 2, we actually acquired a small company. So a company was actually in the space. They didn't want to be in the space that was really doing management and things like that. And they just actually ended up basically assuming contracts because other customers, other vendors weren't actually doing the job. So they said, you know what, we can do it. And then one of the owners became kind of a mentor because we were doing third party through them. And he's like, dude, this one of these companies out of Tampa wants me to sell to them, but I don't give two flips about these guys. Like, do you want these accounts? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to pay what they're going to pay. Like, heck no, dude. Like, you might as well sell to them and you want that payday. And he's like, you know what, man? Like, I believe in you and what you're doing and your story. So I'm going to give you it was a huge discount on the accounts, but it was still way more money than I had. Still way more. Like, it was a couple $100,000 that I couldn't just pay him like tomorrow. So we acquired that company. What I learned from that, and this is definitely good for your listeners, is that don't acquire other people's accounts until your system is strong enough to handle that new level of accounts. And so we were struggling managing what we were growing organically. We were growing around a 400% rate year over year. So that alone was already hard, right? Just managing the cash flow alone, forget the operations and everything else, just the cash flow was tough. And we didn't take a loan or anything like that. So every dollar was going back into the business. And so I said, man, you know what? Like, look at all these accounts. This is so much extra money, in our pocket. Like, let's just figure it out. Let's just do it. And this hindsight is 2020, right? Because I felt like we had to do it because I didn't want one of our competitors to get those accounts. And so I said, let's do it. We do the deal. And I kid you not, within 3 months, maybe, one of the individuals who was working in that company decides to start their own business. And then since they were actually involved in the business before, all of the clients started, okay, yeah, I'll go to you. And he starts taking those accounts that we had paid for.
Just paid for. Wow.
Correct. And so whereas I'm wiser now, contractual obligations are a lot stronger than your just handshake agreements. And so even Marcus Lemon is someone whom I look up to as well. He has a show called The Prophet. That's something where he's actually had his kind of hand bitten before, where he's tried to make handshake deals and then it actually didn't turn out how he thought it would turn out. And so unfortunately for us, we ended up having to pay for accounts that were lost. And that really hurt us really bad.
So your mistake there, if I'm hearing this right, wasn't necessarily taken, saying yes, figuring it out later, even though it's good to be more set up for it, but it was not getting everything in writing and getting all the legal documents in place.
Yes.
So if you could go back, you would have still said yes, but then you would have put the contract in place, or what would you have done differently?
Two things. So number one, I probably would have still said yes. However, I would have made sure that the contractual obligations were defined up front. So if I lost an account because of one of your employees decided to do whatever, who you didn't have a non-compete with, who you didn't make sure that your business was good with, that shouldn't be my fault. You know what I mean? Right. So there should have been contingencies upon that. And then secondly, operationally, we should have been in a position to handle those accounts from day one. To literally turn on the water hose or the faucet and then have the operational structure in place. So unfortunately, I learned those lessons and I've never made that mistake again. And so if anybody else tries to do business with me, unfortunately, I'm not going to make that mistake. But, so there's pros and cons with it.
All right, guys, we're back with Jamison Gavin of Premium Trash, Legend Vest, and multiple other businesses. And we're going to pick up where we left off. So, Jamison, what would you say are your core strengths in business or entrepreneurship that have made you succeed up until this point?
I like that question. So I would say number one is definitely vision. I think that, and it's kind of weird, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, and we just look at businesses and even on like her podcast, like she just wants me to just talk about other businesses. But I feel like, and I'm not sure where this came from, but I'm able to kind of predict if businesses will be successful based on the things that they're doing in the marketplace. And so it's kind of been fun just to write down what I think a business will do within like the next year or 5 years, etc. So vision is definitely the number one thing.
Let me talk about vision for a second, because that is one of the things. I'm glad you brought it up. How do you, because I also can share that with you, where you vividly can see what something could and would be, and then kind of reverse engineer it. How would you teach somebody to do that?
Whoa.
Is that maybe one of those things that
I don't know if that's teachable,
just came natural to you? Like, like how would you tell somebody to start, like, hey, like, have a vision? Like, how do you have a vision?
Man, now that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things to that question. I don't know if there's a formula. If there is, I haven't figured that one out. And if we do, we should write a book on that one. Yeah, that would be a good one. But I think vision is important, and I think you probably only get it by learning what's possible. I think that's huge. I think a lot of people, and unfortunately, man, like there's a lot of people in this world who just don't have vision. And they're not even able to see like 2 moves in front of them, or like people who play chess are looking 3, 4, some people say 100 moves at like the best players. So they're not able to see that. And in being an entrepreneur, it's very important, because you don't want to start a business, put everything you have into this business, take like all of your money, all your family's money, you like refinance your house, and you're taking all your equity out and doing whatever for a business that fails like next month, and that unfortunately it happens, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. That's a great question.
Because I've always wondered that. I've really always wondered, like, how, is that something that you just are born with, or is that something that you train your mind to see vision? Maybe like, playing things like chess, or like doing any kind of mind exercises. It's just, it's even difficult to describe. It is. Like what is a vision, but it's just, you kind of just have like a vivid picture of what it could look like, and you reverse engineer from there. That's exactly it. All right, well, we'll leave that a mystery for now. Yeah. That's a hard one. And what else? What other strengths would you say?
I would see perseverance is definitely probably number 2 after vision. I don't see any entrepreneur that's really made it big, or that's had any massive success, that did not have major perseverance. And that goes back to me saying it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But if you understand that it's going to be hard days just become another day that you just get through.
No, and that's good for you to mention, because like I said, like, you're a natural, so it seems like a lot of things may have come easy to you, but obviously there was fear in your early days. Absolutely. Right? Like those calls you didn't want to make, the meetings you didn't want to show up for. Maybe talk about like how did you push yourself through that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it's just rough. The easiest way is to get yourself a mentor, get somebody around you who does make it look easy. I'm very fortunate for the mentors I have, whom are in multifamily, who are in businesses, who are in all type of things. I'm able to see how easy it looks for them. And then I'm able to ask, dude, like, how did you handle this situation? Because right now it looks like I'm about to die tomorrow. Like, it literally looks like the whole business is going under, and it looks like I'm just going to just fall off the face of the planet. So, like, what happened, And then we'll either meet for lunch, or they'll just call me back or whatever. One of my mentors, I remember in Orlando when I was going through that thing, he's like, dude, I can't talk now, but I can talk at 2 a.m. So can you, like, will you be up at 2? I'm like, I guess so. You know what I mean? Like, now I'll make sure that I'm up at 2 to have an hour conversation. And we did. And I was able to get through that.
That's super important. So, go to people that have been through situations that you're going through. And that's almost like, I wouldn't say like a cheat code, but that's really a way to move through the board a lot faster than trying everything yourself. So, all right. You just push through that fear, I guess, through that same... I think I'm going to predict that it's from sports, right? It's like in soccer. It's like you really have to push your mind to, go past, like when you had to run that extra mile or do that extra sprint. Where you didn't have a choice. So maybe you didn't hesitate. There's a lot of people, and me being one of them at first, like I would hesitate so much to make a call, an uncomfortable call to me, something I haven't done before, whatever it is. And you just kind of, I guess, motivate yourself to do it, or what do you think it was?
So I got one for you, and this helps me. I don't know who else this will help, but I know for me personally, And it's a word that I completely made up, so it's not probably in the dictionary. But I try to tangibilize things. And what that really means is like, for example, literally that's it. And so like, for example, I wanted a GTR. That was like my ultimate car. Like the Lambo and the other cars, they look amazing. But for me, it was GTR, and then I want to just do other things with my money. And so I would go and test drive GTRs like over and over and over and over. And it's not an impossible car to get. It's a $110,000 car, but for me, it was always the car that I wanted. And so I would just, even on like my bad days, I would just go touch the car. I would go talk to the Nissan dealer, pretending I'm gonna buy the car when I was only making $30,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like I would just go look at it. Yeah, okay, well I don't, this isn't the color I want, so this is not the one for me. But if you get the color I want, I'll be back. Give me a call. And so I would do it over and over and over to so many different dealerships. I knew everything about the car. I knew the pricing of the car. I knew how much the car costs, how much the insurance costs. I was really tangibilizing everything. And I think that by me focusing on that, it made those calls easier. So literally when it was a tough call and I'm like, man, I was calling 50 people a day and 49 were saying no. And I'm like, man, this is just bull crap. You know what I mean? And I would literally say, but I want that GTR. And so then I would pick up the phone and I'm like, you know what? I want this thing. Or I would go hang out with one of my mentors who has a lot of nice cars and exotic cars. And I would go and just hang out with him, and I would see his 11,000 square foot house in Claremont, where he's got literally an airplane, a runway in his backyard. And I would go there, and I'm just like, it's time to go work, baby. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to make some calls. And I would go back the next day, motivated yet again, and see, what, like, it's possible. And unfortunately, I think for people who grew up in areas where I grew up, where unfortunately just aren't very fortunate areas, we didn't see Mercedes even around, even Lexus. Like, I mean, this is the type of areas I grew up in. So for us, those things weren't even possible. And when we did see the one Lamborghini, it was a rapper who was driving down the street in a purple Lamborghini. So what do we think? We got to be a rapper. Or we would see on TV, we got to play ball, play some sport. But we don't see we can do it in a moving company. We can do it in a trash company. We can make millions and millions of dollars through selling books or being an entrepreneur and doing something. And I think that's really the key.
So you got so excited about your vision, you made it so clear that it made the pain or like the things that you didn't want to do a lot easier. It's like, all right, cool, let me go in that direction.
Yep.
So back to vision. So vision seems to be like really the most important thing to carry you through the tough
for
times.
Me it is.
Yeah. No, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs too, because and hearing you say that, I never like really thought of it that way for myself, but I think that's also what keeps me motivated and pushing. And I need to do more of what you did. Go to these dealerships and go touch and feel everything.
Yeah, why not?
There's one across the street. So.
Dude, we can go out right now. I mean, they're gonna talk to us.
That's
you know
true,
what I mean?
So
true. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I like that. That's good. All right, so taking it all the way back to your story, you exited your premium trash. Yep. Then you had the rediscovery phase of what was your purpose. And tell me how and why you moved into multifamily, and how did you kind of break into an industry that, I don't know, that you didn't know or knew a lot about?
So I knew absolutely nothing about it. And so literally from the very first property that we got, which was actually in Denton, Texas, and we will buy that property very soon, is actually one of our goals. It's around a 250 unit community. But from the very first property we did, we drove Courtney's Toyota Corolla nonstop from Orlando to Denton, Texas. We didn't have even enough money for a hotel. Even a cheap $20 hotel, we didn't have enough. Just enough gas money to get there. Stay with her uncle. And from that night, it took us like 6-7 hours to run one property, which would take my guy like an hour right now to run. And we realized that night, you know what? Instead of just doing the trash for these properties, we're gonna own these properties. And so from that very first night, we said to each other that we're gonna own properties like these around the world. And so that became a vision from the very first night.
And that vision is what moved you into that.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
And what are your kind of, where are you at now in the multifamily industry? What are your plans for the next year, next decade? Where do you see yourself in that industry?
That's awesome. So currently right now, I'm very happy to say that we own around 1,200 units throughout the United States, primarily in the state of Florida. So initially we ended up partnering with a friend of ours, who we just literally, we went out to, I think it was a dinner and like off of iDrive together. We partnered with them on a deal. We started doing like little small brokerage deals with them. And then we started using our own money to start investing in much bigger deals. So we even have a deal that we're working on in Delray right now. And we just continue to go, and we take the cash from those properties, and we don't need, very fortunate, we don't need the cash from our deals. So every single dollar from our deals go back into buying more deals. So when we sell a property, we flip that puppy and we put every single dollar into another deal. And then as we have more money come in from other businesses, they go right and back into more deals.
That's amazing, man. You've got a really good setup for yourself.
I'm trying. I got a long way to go to get to your boy Uncle G. So, and even my mentors too. I mean, I wouldn't understand how to do that if it wasn't for people like Grant Cardone, who willingly give out the information through YouTube, through podcasts, things like that. Also through my mentors at the largest real estate company in the world, those individuals and other people at other companies that know that I'm working with them and other things. If they weren't so willing literally to open up their minds and their hands and their life to bring me in as mentors to me, literally, I would not know a single thing about real estate. And I'm very fortunate that those individuals have given, because I just wouldn't know any of it, to be honest.
And listen, and you're repaying the favor right now to me and anybody else that's listening that's getting some value from this. So
that's awesome.
Thank you. And
absolutely.
yeah, you just gotta keep it going. You know,
trying.
You learn it and you give it. That's
yep, definitely trying.
All right, and so I know we've been here for a while. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to get this one last thing out. If you lost all your assets, you lost everything that you've built up until this point, and all you had was a pen and paper to leave your kids 3 truths that you've learned in your life up until this point. You're very young. You're going to learn so much more over the next few decades. But right now, you know, if all you had to leave behind was 3 truths, you couldn't pass down any money. You couldn't pass down the cars. None of that. What would they be?
Wow, he definitely threw this one on me, guys. He didn't tell me about this one. So this is definitely this is a new one. 3 truths to leave with them. Man, and actually, man, this hits home because of you know, the Kobe thing just now. Man, that's a tough one. I think number 1, honestly, would probably be to never give up into what you want to do in life. So that would definitely be number one. Number 1 is that perseverance. I think a lot of people give up way too soon. And I think that people give up way too soon just because it gets hard and it gets tough. And I don't blame anybody. I mean, none of us are perfect, and I don't blame anyone for giving up because it is so tough. But I would try to leave with him, never give up on what you believe in if you know this is what you want to do. Number 2, these are tough, man.
It's tough.
These are definitely tough ones. Number 2, I would say it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So the very first mentor I had told me that, who actually lives down here, and he had a Lamborghini Aventador and a SLS AMG, which is why I asked him to be my mentor. But very cool cars, love both of those cars. And this was like 5, maybe 6 years ago, beautiful cars. And that's the one thing that he left me with from our first meeting was, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. A lot of people, I think they think, like we said earlier, they gotta be in Bitcoin, or they, you know, Bitcoin goes up. Oh my gosh, everybody getting into Bitcoin. Like, dude, like, do you even know what Bitcoin is? Like, you can't even explain blockchain to me. People are investing like crazy money into Bitcoin. Like, get out of here. So, you know, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And doing things the right way will always lead to success. It may take longer, but if you're in the right business and you do it the right way, it doesn't matter. Like, whoever made this table is probably a multi-gazillionaire right now. The same with, you know.
IKEA. So yes.
Literally, yeah, they definitely are. You know what I mean? Like, it's so many things. This jacket, my belt, I mean, everything. It doesn't really matter what it is. So that's what I would tell him, number 2. And then number 3, I would probably say, man, these are tough, dude. These are tough. It'd probably have to be something about loving others first. And I'm a strong believer in, and I think this was T. Harv Eker, who he might have got from Zig Ziglar, but it's basically goes off the lines of, if you help enough people, you will always have everything that you want. And so I truly believe in that. I believe if if I'm able to help others succeed in whatever they're doing, it could be saving them 5 minutes, even your business, right? And you've helped us move, and it saved us so much time, headaches, back-breaking stuff or whatever. For me, definitely. I feel old now. You know what I mean? But that saved us, time and we had a newborn at the time too, which would have been like miserable for us to try to do, and that allowed us to do more things and have a better experience moving. So if you help enough people succeed and you sell off of that, then the sales continue to grow. So I think if you help enough people succeed in what they need to do, you will always have way more than enough for yourself.
It sounds like another one of those things about you is you're a very selfless person, and that's gotten you. I mean, anybody that knows you thinks you're the nicest guy.
Oh my God, I don't know about that.
And I genuinely think you're the nicest guy.
Really?
Too. Like
I
you
didn't
and
know
Courtney.
that.
Yeah, that's
I
one of the first
appreciate that.
impressions.
Wow.
It's just, and you could tell it's genuine. You could tell it's authentic. There's some people that are nice, and you could tell it's not so authentic.
Yeah, super fake. Yeah, I know those guys very well.
So
very well. I'm like, hey, yeah. They know who they are. Too.
All right, man. Well, no, thank you so much for coming. One last thing. Do you want to mention here your long-term vision for homelessness?
Yeah.
What's your vision with that? Because I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, man. So I don't actually share this with too many people, mainly because I've tried to tackle it, and it's a very difficult task to tackle. But as I continue to have success, it's something that I want to continue to do. But basically, I personally believe that homelessness is a solvable problem. I think that us as a nation, I'll just say our nation, we'll just stick with there. I think us as a nation, the United States, we can solve homelessness. We really can. And it's really not that difficult to solve. However, it's that we choose not to solve it. And so the type of person that I am, I think with my heart of wanting to help other individuals, everyone who's homeless, they're not homeless because of things that they can necessarily control. There are a group of people who are there who could do other things. So with Premium Trash, one of the things we tried to do was we tried to employ the homeless, and we were able to successfully create a program to employ the homeless, literally to pick up trash, which anybody can pretty much do. And we were able to help them get back into school. We got individuals at Valencia and then who went to UCF. One individual, her name was Peggy. She was actually she was in the military. She was a veteran. And so getting them in this program that we created, literally then, which the program unfortunately is no longer there because the company who we acquired they didn't agree with that program. Not to say that they're not doing other things, but doing things like that, I think we can solve homelessness. And the last part about this, and this is a space that you know very well, is the real estate sector. There are enough homes that are vacant today to actually house the homeless. So where's the gap? The gap is literally one thing, and that comes down to money. And so the last portion of this, and this is like my master plan, folks, but the last portion of that is, where does the money come from? And the reality of it is this. The money that we pay right now to take care of the homeless through our taxes is actually 4 times more than it would cost if we literally just wrote a check and provided them housing. So we could actually lower our taxes almost by 4 times pretty much to just literally just take care of the homeless, people who are already in need. To me, that is a solution that needs to be explored more, instead of our taxes always going up, which they always are, regardless of who the president is, doesn't matter. And then secondly, having people on the curb when we can actually help them to have a better life. So that's what I think.
Well, that sounds like a super honorable mission, and it sounds like maybe we'll be seeing you in politics someday.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if they want me in politics. I'd be too honest. I hurt a lot of people's feelings.
All right, man. Well, no, thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being our first guest.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This was fun for you. Hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.
And till next time, folks.
That was awesome.
All right, man.
Thank you, sir. That was good.
Oh.
So did we get all the audio?
I hope. I was kind of shitting myself a little bit when we did that intermission because one of the cameras stopped recording.
Did it?
Yeah, but
hopefully we'll be good though.
Yeah, I'll put together something with this for sure.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. I really hope that this brought you some value. If you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. I really appreciate your time. And stay tuned, and I'll try to keep these interesting, and I will try to keep bringing in experts that can give you some nuggets that you can apply into your own life. So thanks, guys, and happy quarantine.